Let me tell you a story that sounds almost unbelievable. One where greed met with nature's fury, and a single decision turned everything upside down. It all started when Homeowners Association, better known as an HOA, decided they could do whatever they pleased. They looked at a quiet stretch of land near a lake and thought it would be the perfect place to expand their neighborhood. The problem? That land wasn't theirs. It was mine. For years, I had owned this property. It wasn't just dirt and grass. It was a piece of my family's history. My father had left it to me, and with it came not just land, but responsibility. On that land sat an old dam, one that controlled the water flow into the lower fields and neighborhoods. I maintained it, I inspected it, and I understood just how powerful it could be if mishandled. But the HOA didn't care about that. Without my permission, they started clearing ground. Trucks rolled in, concrete poured, and within months 35 homes were standing tall where my family's cattle once grazed. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Surely, someone had filed the wrong paperwork. Surely this couldn't be legal. I spoke to the HOA board, but they brushed me off like I was some stranger trespassing on their development. I hired a lawyer, but the HOA had money, connections, and time. Every meeting ended with the same message. There's nothing you can do about it. But they were wrong. You see, while they built their homes and celebrated their new neighborhood, they never once stopped to ask about the dam. The very dam sitting just upstream, holding back millions of gallons of water. The dam that I legally owned because it was on my land. For months, I watched. I saw new families move into those houses, proudly decorating their porches, planting flowers, and putting up mailboxes. They were innocent, I'll admit. Most of them probably didn't even know their home stood on stolen land. But the HOA board, they knew. They thought they had won. That's when I made a choice. One stormy night, with rain pouring and thunder rolling across the sky, I walked up to the dam. I had inspected it earlier that week and knew it was nearing capacity. The storm was filling the reservoir faster than it could drain. It was dangerous, and normally I would have opened the gates gradually to release pressure safely. But this time, I didn't. I waited. The water climbed higher and higher, slamming against the concrete walls with relentless force. The sound was deafening, like a giant beast pounding at its cage. And then, at the perfect moment, I turned the wheel. The gates groaned, metal grinding against metal, until with a thunderous roar, the flood was unleashed. A wall of water surged forward, tearing through the valley like a runaway train. It rushed down the hillside, across the fields, and straight into new development. In minutes, streets turned into rivers. Lawns disappeared beneath churning waves. The proud new homes, those 35 monuments to arrogance, were swallowed whole. Windows shattered. Cars floated. People screamed as they scrambled to rooftops. The HOA board, the very people who had laughed in my face, stood powerless as their prized neighborhood drowned before their eyes. By morning, the storm had passed, and so had the water. What was left behind looked like a war zone. Houses collapsed, fences splintered, and the once pristine neighborhood was nothing but mud and wreckage. News crews arrived, and so did government officials. The HOA tried to shift the blame onto me, but the truth was undeniable. The homes had been built on stolen land, without permits, without rights, and without any regard for the dam that held their fate in its hands. When investigators pieced it all together, the HOA was finished. Lawsuits piled up. The board members lost everything. And the homeowners? Most of them moved on, shaken and angry, but wiser for the lesson. As for me, I stood on the edge of my land, watching the sun rise over broken remains of what once was. Did I feel guilty? Maybe a little. After all, innocent families got caught in the middle of a war they didn't start. But at the same time, justice had been served. They thought they could take my land, erase my history, and silence me with money and power. But they forgot one simple truth. Land isn't just dirt. Land holds water. And water, when unleashed, holds power greater than any HOA. In the end, the story wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. Respect for ownership, respect for history, and respect for nature. And when that respect is lost, well, one dam can change everything.